Lewis Latimer. Ever heard of him?
No.
Crazy. So Latimer is the reason that Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell are what they are. The telephone, the incandescent light bulb. He was the guy behind that, pushing it forward, writing these contracts, doing it. So he suffered with being, and we can go into any of these archetypes you want, and we'll figure out what your action archetype is, Max.
Dude, I'm so excited.
Yes.
So how do we take more action in our lives? A lot of people, I feel like these days, are struggling with laziness, stuck in a rut, perhaps feeling. And yeah, you're the man. You're like super motivating to so many people around the world. So yeah, what do we do? How do we do it?
Okay, so we can break it down in this way. There's 9 archetypes, action archetypes, meaning the reasons people don't take action. So this book is a byproduct. 3 years ago, I started on this research, studies, personal surveys, because it was just really honestly a pet peeve of mine to see why people would make excuses. They say, hey, I want to do this. And then they don't even take any action steps towards it. Well, why would you say it if you're not going to do it? So I went on, did all this research, all this studies that's in the book, and it comes down to 9 main action archetypes, why people don't take action. Everything is based in fear. Fear of what the result will be. Fear of ultimately failure. So the point of this book, it's kind of like the Enneagram. You know, when you read the Enneagram, you're like, oh, this is my number. This is not a personality type. I say it's the Enneagram meets Atomic Habits. It has action steps. It has things to do to break through these barriers, roadblocks holding you back, with crazy cool Malcolm Gladwell type stories of historical figures from the past who changed the world that you probably have never heard of before.
Whoa.
Yeah, like guys like Lewis Latimer. Ever heard of him?
No.
Crazy. So Latimer is the reason that Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell are what they are. The telephone, the incandescent light bulb. He was the guy behind that, pushing it forward, writing these contracts, doing it. So he suffered with being, and we can go into any of these archetypes you want, and we'll figure out what your action archetype is, Max.
Dude, I'm so excited.
Yes. But he suffered from being a blamer. So blaming people of the past, blaming things of the past. It's so much easier to blame other people for why you're not taking action. So that's one of the archetypes. The others are the allodaxophobic, meaning fear of other people's opinions.
Allodaxophobic?
Yeah, that's when you fear somebody else's opinions. So there was no like one word for fear of other people's opinions other than allodaxophobic. So yeah, that's going to be the one.
That's
that makes
amazing.
Sense.
Yeah.
The burned, the blamer, the test believer, the perfectionist, the scarcity mindset, the inopportune, thinking you're either too young or too old, the underestimator, and the distracted. Those are the 9, and then you figure out which one yours is, and you learn what's actually going on in the brain.
Damn.
Like, what's going on in the heart? Why are we holding ourselves back, our feelings? Then you'll learn about one of these incredible characters that went through the same struggle you're struggling with, the same one that you relate with, how they came to this moment of, all right, well, do I take the safe route? Do I take the easy route? It's like a lot of us do. You know, like, we don't want to be exposed or we don't want to fail, but they went for it. They end up changing the world, the trajectory of history, and it shows you how you can also do this with tools, how to break through these different barriers.
God, that's amazing. That's so insanely empowering that you put together like these 9 archetypes. They're really the archetypes for that inner voice, right? That inner limiting belief framework that we all have, right? No matter who we are, we all have that voice. For some people, I think it's louder and more influential than others.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you've been able to distill it into 9.
Yeah. So there's some other ones, but these are the main ones that have just kept coming back on why people are not taking action. Because when you think about it in your life, like where you are today. So think about, as you're listening, where you're at today, and you think about, okay, well, what are your goals for tomorrow? What's your vision for the future? In that gap from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow, it's literally taking action. It's taking action through the uncertainty. And that's what people fear the most. The reason why people don't take action is because they fear what the results will be. They don't know what the results will be. If I said, hey, Max, I'm going to tell you exactly the day that you die, or I know the day that I die, we would live differently. We wouldn't be as fearful of death because we know when it's going to happen. Same thing with anything in life. If you know when it happens, if you know you're going to reach these goals down the line, you're more willing to take action. But if you think like, well, if I pour all of this 20 years into this and it doesn't happen, am I a failure? That's why people hold themselves back, because of that fear. So let's dive into some of these archetypes.
Yeah, I'm fired up.
I know the listeners want to figure out what they are.
Yes. So I want to figure out what I am.
All right. Should we start it off like that?
Let's do it.
All right. So what's also cool about this is you are not stuck to each one. It's not like the Enneagram, hey, you're a 7 with a wing of the 8, and that's just who you are. You might be a different one at a different time. I've been basically every single one of these 9 at some point in my life. All right, Max. You are where you are today. Phenomenal podcaster, author, huge voice. Where, if you could paint the picture of where you want to be in the future Max, after he's had that midlife crisis down the road, 50, 55, 60, what does that look like for you?
Oh, man. Wow. What a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
I would say, well, I don't, here's the thing. I try to take each day like one at a time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And I aspire to, in 10 years, 15 years from now, just have more impact. That's it. And less friction between, my dreams of what I want to be reality and how quickly I'm able to instantiate those dreams in the real world. For example, like a film project.
Yes.
If I have a new idea for a film project, right now it seems like a gargantuan hurdle, just based off of my experience doing one film.
Right.
I would love to be able to shrink that, reduce that friction.
Okay, so let's talk on that. So if you want to be, say, a big film producer, do you want to have multiple films? Do you want that to be a mainstay, or is it just a project? Like, is this something you want to be as part of what you do? When people think Max Lugavere, he's a big film producer.
Well, yeah, film, I think film is like one potential arm of it, but just media influence in the media scape.
Okay. So what would you say is in this gap of where you are today to getting there? Is it just more time doing the same thing that you're doing? Which, hey, you might not have any of these archetypes holding you back. Because ultimately, when you figure out who you are, when you're so comfortable in your own skin, you know the person you are, you know your strengths, that's your system. Your process is the daily habits that you pour in every single day. So when you're saying, I'm taking it a day at a time, you're pouring in daily habits to reach that goal. So if you have system plus process, you're ultimately going to equal the results. We don't know when that time is going to happen. You're saying, hey, I want to take what could be 15 years and expedite it to 5 years.
Yes.
So is there any roadblocks holding you back from that? Or when you say, I will be a film producer, it is 100% conviction that you will?
It's the roadblocks are, I would say, that I'm just I've worked on one film project, which has taken me about a decade at this point, and I'm just exhausted. So it's a combination of laziness, feeling a bit deflated from that process.
Yeah. Okay, this is good. Would you say that is you are a perfectionist? Do you have to have that? I'm not saying in your whole life. We're talking about this project. Would you say you're not going to put it out there till you think it is perfect?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So why do you think it has to be perfect?
Because whatever I feel like I put out is a reflection on me, and I hold myself to sometimes very high. Well, all the time I would say I hold myself to high standards, but sometimes maybe those standards are impossibly high.
Right. And that's also, that's a good thing that you do, obviously, that you're not just throwing out crap and just saying, hey, this is me, and it's a terrible film. So obviously I highly respect that. But in 10 years, and I know how smart you are, and I know how powerful you are when you get on shows.
Say more.
All right, here we go. And you are so good looking. And I know that you are sliced and shredded right now. No. So why, what is the thing that is not making that happen? You know what I mean? I feel like you have all the pieces together.
Yeah.
You know the right people. I'm assuming you know the vision that you want for this. Is it just hey, I just got to find the time. I got to buckle down towards this time.
I think it's frustration. It's frustration. It's a fear of uncertainty, a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
I think people listening to this might think that at this point there's no rejection, but there's rejection constantly up and down the ladder of whatever, even in publishing, and there's always going to be rejection,
Yeah. Well, I
have a friend who actually works for a very famous comedian, household name level comedian, who has been in a million movies, and he was telling me that he struggles to get movies greenlit.
Oh,
and
totally.
It's endlessly frustrating, especially now in the mediascape because, and I don't want to get off topic, but in the mediascape now, these streaming platforms, they used to be run by people who really cared about media and film, and now they're run by technologists.
Yes.
Right? Netflix, Amazon Prime, they're all run by Silicon Valley now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that creative spirit has been, all but completely extinguished. And so it's frustrating for creatives.
Yeah. Oh, totally. All of these things that you're saying is 100% viable. It is there. But I would also challenge you to look at it from the other side of the coin of Max, looking at you from the outside is if you put something out there, we know that you're going to put all your heart and soul into it. So it's going to be a very good product. You're very smart. You've done it. You've done the shows. And I know that people would tune in if they say, oh, Max, Lugavere documentary or whatever that project is going to be, or the Genius Life show out there, they're going to eat it up. You're probably going to be nitpicking it just like you nitpick any book that you write. Same with me, oh man, dude, go back to that first book. Shoot. Because we know us so well, but other people don't. And here's the last thing I'll tell you on this before we can go into more, so it doesn't have to be a complete therapy session if you don't want on that.
No, but you're so inspired. This is why you get paid the big bucks. I feel so inspired right now.
But think about this. You have a gift. And you've changed so many lives. I see it through social media, but it's tenfold of whatever that is, of people that have read your stuff, listened to you, and changed their entire life. If you have a gift and you can reach the masses with it, which I believe you can, is it innately being selfish by not putting out there because you're afraid of rejection? Because I think you have this amazing gift that could change so many lives more than you even have, but by holding it back, then you're ultimately being selfish in that. It's what I tell basketball players. If you're the best shooter on the team and you just pass because you think you need to get other people involved and you have a wide open three-pointer, shoot that every time. That's your gift. That's going to better other people, better the team.
Make use of your gifts.
Absolutely. Yeah, but also looking at the reverse, some people think, well, it's selfish of me if I try to do it all and it's reflecting on me. But I think it's selfish if you don't, because you've been given this gift. And the reach of media, TV, no matter how hard the struggle is. You look at shows like, what was that show? The South Korean show where they were killing everybody. It was
Squid Game?
Squid Games, yeah. It took 10 years of pitching Squid Games for it to get picked up.
Wow.
10 years. And then it goes on and wins all these awards and everybody's like, yeah, well, it's Squid Games. Yeah, well, they got rejected a zillion times.
Wow.
So many stories of that.
Yeah, my first book proposal was rejected by 3 different publishers before I got the green light,
right?
Before I got an offer from Harper Wave.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
now those publishers are like, oh my gosh, I missed out. But nothing anything crazy to any incredible new idea that we know now. If you look at an iPhone or you look at a Tesla, it's. Of course, it's a Tesla. But when those things were coming out, everybody would have called those people crazy. Oh, that's dumb. That's the stupidest thing. Oh, Max, that book, that's not going to work. But then one person believes in you and it's good. This show, this movie, this whatever you're producing is good, really good. Then everybody's like, oh, yeah, you seen the Lugavere documentary? Then it just becomes mainstream.
So what's the moral of the story? Don't give up.
Don't give up and do it.
Do it. I love it. Okay, so I want to go through these archetypes because I feel like people listening will be able to pick and see for themselves what is they'll be able to better be able to refer to that limiting voice in them.
Yeah, we'll go through a few, and then of course it's a teaser that you got to read the book.
Got to read the book,
all of it. I mean, that's just obvious.
Of course,
brainer. Let's jump off with the first one, the allodaxophobic. This is fear of other people's opinions. So the ultimate reason of why you are fearing other people's opinions is one and only validation. You want to feel like you matter. You want to feel like you're validated. That is the whole premise of social media in itself. And there's a lot of things that you have to understand that's working in the brain and working in your heart of why it's protecting you for not taking this risk because you fear other people's opinions. So when someone thinks about you or you think they're thinking about you, you think that's consuming their whole day. You're like, yeah, this dude said this and he's thinking about me. They're probably thinking about you for 10 seconds. So if you think about it, it's like 86,400 seconds in a day. They're thinking about you for 10 seconds. You spend the next 86,390 seconds thinking about them, but they're actually thinking about the most important person in their lives, themselves, and what they're eating for dinner. They don't care about you. One of the most freeing things that happened to me was last summer, me and Taylor, we go on an Alaskan cruise. It's amazing. It's great. But I'm also fearing this. I'm like, oh, well, there's not going to be service. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything on social media, no emails, no text for 3 days. What if people forget about me? What if I become irrelevant? And I know it sounds funny to say, but it's a real feeling. And then after those 3 days, I got like 2 messages, a couple emails. Like nobody is waking up in their day being like, man, when's David going to come out with that social media post? When's he going to hit that? So it's just it's a good reminder. It sounds funny to say, but it's a good reminder that people really don't care. They care about you, but they're not caring of what you're doing. You don't have to fear the opinions of other people. And it's just commonplace that at 19%, it's the average. And I've got these notes and there's a study in there and I could go back and quote the study, but 19% of people will just not like you regardless, no matter what you do. Right. Even in the presidential election, which is the president of the United States, who's going to lead the country, the biggest landslide in history was Richard Nixon, 60.2% is what he had. That's the biggest landslide. The other guy, General McGovern or something, whatever his name was, 39.8%. Wow. So this guy goes in with the biggest landslide in history, and he only has 60.2%. So what's that tell you? Don't try to appease everybody. You can't. You won't. There's nothing to fear in other people's opinions because ultimately, think about this too. When you go home at the end of the day, are those people thinking about you? Absolutely not. So why does it matter? It doesn't. It's a win-win situation game. And the tool for this one that I really love and resonate with, and I always have to remember too, especially when I'm speaking, when I put a lot of pressure on myself, I'm thinking, well, what are these people going to think? Will they like me? But I go to what I call the Be the Comedian. So think about your favorite comedy show. My favorite comedy show of all time was The Office. This is Michael Scott. He's the regional manager for this paper company, Dunder Mifflin, in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And he's always saying something and to put his foot in his mouth. And he's in these just stressful, anxious situations. And it's hilarious watching him go through this stress. So the point being is you take yourself out of the situation. Now you become the viewer of your own situation and you're able to laugh. It's like you're watching a comedy. So right now, like let's say like I can't remember anything from my own book, and which has happened before, and I start speaking in gibberish and can't put words together. I would take myself back out of the situation and be like, look at David just messing up there, like a comedy show. So it gives me a piece of like, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. And then the last part, I'll just wrap with this, and just a thought that I always like to have too is 100 years from now, how many people are really going to remember you? Can you remember anybody 100 years ago that was living other than presidents? Maybe a couple, maybe. I can't really. Yeah, no. They don't come to mind. So it takes a lot of pressure off yourself. 100 years from now, what you're doing today, it ain't going to matter.
So smart. So try to be able to see yourself from a third party perspective.
Yeah. Take yourself out of the situation. Hard to do in the moment. I have a tool that I call the snap, just snapping the fingers. It stands for stop. So when you snap your fingers, this is a mental cue to your subconscious. Just kind of like Inception with the top spinning that kicks them back into another layer of a dream. You stop, notice, okay? So I've paused and notice what's going on. Assess is the A. I'm assessing the situation. Well, why is this happening? Why is this my coworker throwing a printer at me or my kid throwing a frying pan at my head? Why is this happening? And then pivot. You slightly change your perspective of it and go the other direction. So it's a tool to be able to use in the moment, because a lot of times the days go so fast, you get so stressed, you get so hurried, and you cannot stop. You have to give yourself ultimately a break in the continuum of time. It's why in sports, halftime happens and you see this team that was just, they suck the first half. Quarterback threw 5 interceptions. they get a break in the continuum of time. The second half, they're able to reset and they're back to being normal. So create those type of resets or these stepping away from your body throughout the day. So you're not just continuing to go down this negative spiral or this anxiety-ridden spiral.
Super powerful. The SNAP method.
Yeah, snap it. Ooh.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh.
So is this helpful only when you are dealing with the unfavorable opinions of others or those thoughts where you are perhaps ruminating on the unfavorable opinions of others? Or is that a method that works for other, acute experiences of a limiting belief?
Super good question. And I would say it works for anything that you want to tie to bring you back to the person that you are type of thing. So even if it's like, I use this with athletes on court, if they want to be able to come back into their confident self, their highlight reel self, instead of if they miss 6 shots in a row and they automatically think, well, I suck, I can't make a shot, snap your fingers. It's just a reminder. So it's a general cue that you can use in basically any type of situation when you're starting to have these limiting beliefs and doubts in yourself.
I love it. Yeah. Because it's like, I would imagine that when you're shooting and if you're on a missing streak or something, then you start to have these like thoughts that then will perpetuate and further degrade your performance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's also called the distortion effect. So that's part of the basically underestimating yourself, the distortion effect of if you miss a few, you automatically say, well, this is who I am. If I miss a few free throws, I'm a terrible shooter. No, you've shot 8 zillion shots in your life. You got to go back on what you have done in the preparation. Let's say you have a bad talk or a bad podcast. You're, oh man, I'm a terrible podcaster. No, you're not. That's a distortion effect. It's extremely distorting what you actually are.
Wow. I love it. I tend to get a little bit anxious before podcasts when I'm being interviewed. And more anxious depending on like how long the podcast is going, because I'm like, am I really like what do I actually know? You know
what's so funny? I was looking through the podcast of the recent people that you've had on, and I saw one. I think it was Sachin Panda. How do you say Panda?
Panda. Yeah.
What a cool last name, by the way.
Yeah,
it was like 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Yes.
I was like, what am I going to talk about for 2 hours and 13 minutes? I hope Max can carry this show. So I feel you, man. It's true. It's real.
Yeah. I mean, before I went on Rogan, I was like, I bet I want to be able to speak for 3 hours, because if I don't, then that's going to make me think that I'm boring or I don't have much to offer, because his shows generally tend to, run around that mark.
Yeah.
And then that would spiral and create more anxiety about like, well, okay, what am I going to talk for? But like recently, and I had the same thing because I was down in Miami. It's so funny. And of course, like I did that, and I think I did a great job. Like the feedback that I got on that was amazing, and we went for 3 hours effortlessly. I could have kept going for 6.
Yeah.
And then I had anxiety recently. I was enlisted to teach a course for the Peterson Academy for Jordan and Michaela Peterson. So I went down to Miami to teach that. And that was an 8-hour course.
8-hour course?
Yeah. And before that, I was like, do I have 8 hours worth of... And of course, like when I'm actually in the moment teaching it, I'm like in my flow state and we're going. And by the end of those 8 hours, I felt like I could have gone for another 8 hours.
Yeah.
I had just scratched the surface.
Yeah. Well, I think it's when you get into your, and I'm not just going to use this because this is your word, but when you get into your genius, it's what you've been doing for so long. It's what you are gifted to do. It just becomes natural in that flow state, and you can keep going for days and days and days. And like you can saying big words, big sciencey words for health and nutrition that I have no idea what they mean, but they sound really cool. So I believe what you say.
Here's an interesting question. I feel very lucky that I feel as though I've found my genius.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe 10 years from now, you ask me what my genius is, and maybe I'll have a different answer. But I, for all intents and purposes, at this point, I feel like I've found it. Doing this, having conversations with brilliant people, conversations with brilliant thought leaders such as yourself. But for people who are listening to this who maybe feel as though they have not yet discovered their inner genius, any tools, tactics, hacks for that to be able to self-identify like what that is for them?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a lot of people will say, well, follow your passion. I don't think that's necessarily the way to do it, because you've been given a certain gift. And you have the gift. You're in your genius and you know it and you feel it. I'm in my genius when I'm speaking on stage, when I'm teaching people how to take their mental skills from great to the next level. I know it. I feel it. I can go all day on those type of things. But when people say, hey, follow your passion, that might lead you astray. You need to understand like what are your gifted skills? What are these? And I think, so let me take a step back. I think we all have the ability to develop skills. It's the attributes that we have, but we're born with certain levels of these different attributes. Like you could be born with a much better propensity for big words, smooth, fluid speaking, storytelling, and I have to work my butt off on it. But I could have more energy. So the different when figuring out where your highest attributes are, but also you have to sharpen those with people of wise wisdom counsel too. The people around you are all saying, well, Max, you're phenomenal at teaching nutrition, teaching health. Like there's probably something to that. But you have to know that these people are legitimate truth tellers and not just yes men. They're not the American Idol parents that are going to say, man, you're so good. You should be #1 platinum artist and you suck. Like that's going to do you a disservice. So figuring out first what those God-given skills are, and before it's even the passion in it, is the purpose of it. What is the reason that you're doing it? You know you're on a mission, Max. You can see you're on a mission. And this can come full circle back into the blamer archetype of this, where you could have used the difficult situations that you've been through in your mom, and you could have blamed the world. You could have been mad at the world. And a lot of people will do that. But you said, no, look, I'm going to show the world a different way. I'm going to teach people that there's a different way. I'm going to use this difficult time in my life to actually spark great help to other people that are going to go through the same thing. So understanding what your purpose is of what you're doing. And if you're only doing it for, and we know these people that are only doing it for notoriety, for a bottom dollar in their bank account, like it's going to burn out, because there is no end result where you reach a certain level and you're like, yeah, I'm good. I made it. It just doesn't happen. I've worked with Olympic gold medal athletes and they're empty after that. Like that will never fill you. But the long going purpose of it, plus with your skills, and then when you hit those two things right there in the sandwich of it, that's where the passion comes in, because you become extremely passionate, not necessarily through the act of what you're doing, but through what it is giving to other people. When you see somebody, they're like, Max, dude, you changed my life. I'm healthy now. I'm going to be a better father to my kids. That's the gold for it. Your vehicle is what you are doing. My vehicle is through speaking. So you have your skills with the purpose, and then you come back and get the passion in the middle.
But it's really something, it's like a purpose that feeds into something larger than yourself.
Absolutely. It has to. It literally has to. I've never met anybody that was doing something for their own personal gain and they were just extremely content, happy, peaceful with their life. It just doesn't happen. We've been around billionaires and they're miserable because they haven't found that purposeful piece of their whole mission.
I think like some people really do get off on making money. Like some people are really passionate about the financial system and
I agree.
Understanding all the different complexities. But I think for most people, it's very seductive to place money in the crosshairs as you go down the trajectory of your life. But for the vast majority of people, that's not going to be a suitable goal, just because it is so self-centered and so
right.
Right.
But the money aspect is so money is a phenomenal servant, but a terrible master. So if these people are making money, their end result, that's bad. It's not bad to make money. Like make money, like make as much money as you possibly can. The joy of competition is freaking awesome. I love competition. Like, well, let's go play some pickleball since you haven't played so I can just dominate you. Just competition. But it's if you put the money is like, that is what validates you. If you have to be validated by walking into a room and be like, oh yeah, you know what? I make the most out of the best car. Like ultimately no one really cares. And it's actually very unattractive. The people I love the most are the people that you meet in a room and they're not trying to tell you how good they are, but you find out secondhand from your boys like, dude, do you know who that is? Like I literally just had this. It was about 4 months ago. We were at a screening for one of my wife's friends who had a movie coming out. And I was talking to this guy who had this Ojai ice cream hat on. So Ohio, just north of California, this ice cream shop. I'm like, dude, is that your place? He's like, yeah, we own Ohio ice cream. Just saying it really humbly. So I'd get talking about ice cream. I mean, I love ice cream. Jenny's ice cream is the best. But so we're talking about flavors. I'm like, dude, you got to do this flavor, a little ooey gooey butter cake. And we talked for 30 minutes about flavors of ice cream. I walk away from that meeting and another guy comes up and says, hey, you know who that was, right? It's like, yeah, he runs Ohio ice cream. No. He's one of the biggest producers in Hollywood. He did Aquaman. And he just started naming off all these movies.
Wow.
See, that's cool. Right? He didn't feel the need that he had to validate himself with how cool he was, how much money he's made, or how much his movies have sold.
Yeah. I love that. I love that concept of of making yourself a high value person.
Yeah.
And I think part of what that means is to just acquire knowledge.
Yeah.
About as broad an array. Suck the marrow from life, Like there's so many things like that there are to learn about. Like my brother, we talk about this all the time at dinner. He goes down these like Wikipedia rabbit holes where he he'll go. Like there's no end to the amount you can learn from Wikipedia. I mean, people will say Wikipedia is not the most like accurate thing.
I think it is.
No, it's amazing. It is amazing. It's like crowdsourced information. It's like the hive mind.
Yeah.
So
no. I think that's really cool. I want to just talk on that for a minute too. Is like I think life is this long hallway we're walking down. It's a constant, exhilarating journey of learning. So the first door that you enter, you're young, you're out of college, whatever it might be, you're in your first job, and you learn from that. And you learn in there. And a lot of people, if they get rejected, if they get fired, if that doesn't work out, they look at, there's two different ways to look at things. It's a lost opportunity principle or the future opportunity principle. One of the two. That's the only way you can look at situations. And they look at it as a loss. They're like, oh, well, I spent 3 years working at this company and now it's all gone. Or I poured 5 years into this relationship. I'm not going to put my heart on the line anymore because I got burnt by this. No, you didn't. You learned all of this probably to lead you to a different career with that skill sets that you learned. Like me thinking I was going to be an NBA basketball player, 23 years of playing and I get cut. I have nothing to show for it, not $1. So those skill sets led me to be a coach in the NBA. It wasn't all for loss. So you walk out that door, you go down the hallway. Now I go in the door on the right and you're learning some more there. There's another type of thing, or I'm learning an NBA coaching. I think, oh, that's it. I made it. I'm there. And I get fired after the first year.
Oh, man.
So again, it's like, oh, rejection. No, it's building me up for what's coming next. Working with players individually, learning how to speak on stage, write books from the experiences I had. So everything is this long hallway of constant learning. You're just learning any situation that you go in. It's never like it's cut, it's over, you lost it. It's only setting you up for this future opportunity to come. So there's a lot of things like are just, it's which way you look at it. And I know that might sound like cliche of like, oh, it's all perception, but a lot of life is perception. It's the same thing with the thinking of, it's the upward counterfactual thinking versus downward counterfactual. Upward is, oh, well, I mean, I should have done it that way, or what if I would have done this? Or you're always living in regret of the past through the decisions that you made. But the downward counterfactual thinking is, well, it could have been worse. Like you get in a little, fender bender. You're like, well, I could have got totaled, so I'm not going to let that ruin my day. The way that you look at things is, I mean, if we can keep going on this of like when we're talking about whether is it for yourself or is it for others. There's two ends of the spectrum. The let's say the left side is ego, 100% ego, all about yourself. The other side is full alignment with who God made you to be, your full potential. The society, life is trying to pull you back daily towards the ego. Oh, puff your chest up. Look at all those likes you got. This is like, it's all you. You did this. Promote yourself. And that drives you nuts in the long run. But when you finally get in this, like daily, we're trying to get closer and closer to this full alignment of who we are meant to be. That's where the ultimate rhythm and the contentment comes in. So there's only two sides of the spectrum in literally basically everything in life has two sides to it.
Yeah. How do we counter though? I feel like we have an innate bias for negativity, right? Because I feel like dwelling and ruminating on the risks, right, provided a survival advantage for the vast majority of our evolution, right?
Yes.
And so today I think that leaves a lot of us like kind of still in that mode.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a perfect setup. It's like you've read the whole book inside and out. It actually takes more stimuli energy in the brain to think negative thoughts.
Interesting.
Think about that. It takes more energy for the brain to think negative. We are we're basically programmed to think negative from the day we're about 3 or 4 years old. We're already learning. We're learning pretty much all that we're going to know about people through their actions, through the way that they talk. We already get this negative tone set into us. So our whole life is spent, how do you take that out? How do you combat that? Because isn't that funny? Like where we're at in life, where everybody is at in this moment right now, there's something you're working on from your past you're still trying to work through, right? Our past literally shapes us to who we are. And if we allow that past to be these negative thoughts, that's why when people say, hey, have daily affirmations, write down your joys, do gratitude. It's not just cheesy. It's actually, there's a reason for it. You're building in these repetitions of your mind. It's just like going to the gym. If you want to get really big biceps or a big chest, like looking at Max swole as can be over here, he's putting in these repetitions. And it's the same thing with your mind. If you want to have a positive mind, you have to put in the repetitions of it. But also understand when I say that, I'm not saying, hey, just paint a beautiful cloudy, clouds and sunshiny day and everything's perfect. No, you have to accept and appreciate the negative before you can get to the positive, or you just continue to suppress it. And when you suppress, that's ultimately when the stress, the anxiety, and the blow-ups happen. So coming this full circle, this is a lot of what the archetype, the burnt. So when you're burnt, you have something in your past you're holding on to. And this is what's called traumatic age regression. This means something in your past is you are frozen in that time. Until you address that situation that happened, you will not be able to get past that. So you had a horrible childhood and your parents were abusive to you. You go back to your childhood home, you automatically shrink into that person that you were. You're still frozen in that time. And I know people listening can hear that. Like I had a great childhood, but I want to go back to my parents' house. I still kind of think I'm the high school David. Like I feel it's weird. You know what I mean?
Totally relate. Yeah.
But you have to be able to address that situation, become okay with it. And then you're able to move on from that. So looking at the past of, okay, the past it's only been to set me up to where I am today. It's not something that I stay in. It's not something I live in. It's not something I blame in.
And you don't owe your past self anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, you're free to reinvent yourself at any given moment.
Exactly. And people hear that like, oh, well, it's so hard. No, it's not. I know everybody has had something difficult in their past. We're not downplaying. You're like, oh, you don't know what I've been through. Okay, I've been through a lot. Everybody listening has been through a lot. You make that decision. And you've been through that. You made that decision. Like we were talking about, you decided to use your past as something for a bigger, brighter future to help millions of people.
Yeah, and also what I've learned over the past 2 years specifically is that nobody escapes childhood trauma free. Like obviously there are some types of trauma that are more intense than others, and I don't want to downplay the big T trauma that many people surely have experienced, but ultimately everybody is traumatized by some aspect of their childhood,
no doubt.
And so yeah, I mean everybody has something that is in some way or another trying to hold them back. Whether or not you let it, I mean that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean I absolutely agree. It's different levels, but you're ultimately the one that gets to make the choice. And you have 35,000 choices you make daily. That's the average amount of choices that people make. So why wouldn't you set yourself up with the best environment to make positive choices? Why wouldn't you set yourself up with affirmations or people that you're around that are going to speak life into you, that you're going to be around? And that's one reason, like, I love being around high achieving people that are doing great things, that have big missions, because I'll say, hey, I'm going to do this. And like, yeah, cool, do it. All right, go do it. And they're not like, oh, well, you can't do that. They're not trying to bring you down. And I think a lot of people get so stuck in, well, oh, these were my friends. I have to stay loyal to them. I'm not saying go tell them you're never going to be their friend again, but you don't have to give your time to them. You don't have to pick up the phone from someone from high school who's just going to just vent about the negative things in their life. You don't have to.
Exactly. If you're hanging out with people that hold you to the same standard that they held you to in high school, it's probably not the most productive to your growth.
Yeah, I would assume so.
You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree.
Is there an optimal morning routine to just crush it in life?
Wow. And I want to throw this one back at you too. I got some questions for you.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You're actually boots on the ground. You work with some insanely successful people.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know if there's an actual like, it has to be this way. I think it's more of the, what gets your mind the most clarity in the morning. And I can tell you one thing, it's not checking your phone right when you wake up and seeing 16 text messages or emails. Like that is just recipe for disaster. The people that I see the most successful and which I get to emulate what others do, they have a quiet time in the in the morning. And for me, that time is like, I'll just go through it. I love coffee. I love the smell of it. I love the whole process of it. It's kind of like just the ambiance of it. So I'm playing praise and worship music. So I'm just feeling nice and relaxed, making my coffee. I'm not rushing into the day. And I'll just have a little quiet time that I'm going through a devotional. I'm writing out joys from the day. I'm sending out a text message to 3 people who I'm just checking in with. Just say, hey, how you doing? Thinking of you. Nothing. I'm not asking anything. Just letting them know I'm there for them. That's a game changer in itself, doing that for people, because people don't really have people reaching out to them, just trying to encourage them and just be there for them. So you can be that person. And, it's just at keeping that time to yourself. I mean, for me, then I'll do a workout because that's when my mind works the best as it is. Like after a workout, my mind's on fire there. But not overcomplicating it, really, man. Like I think it can go so many things of like, well, you're gonna have apple cider vinegar with lemon and cayenne pepper, obviously, or you're just gonna have a terrible day. So the whole thing, it's a double-edged sword. Morning routines and habits are even double-edged swords, because if you become beholden to thinking, well, if I don't do this, then I'm gonna have a horrible day. Then now you are a slave to your habit. Habits are literally enhancers to your life. Like they're supposed to help you. They're like vitamins that are supposed to help you. But if you don't have them, so many people get so, out of whack. They're like, oh, well, you just don't get it. Well, my kid, he wakes up, so I can't get a workout like you can. Well, work out with your kid. What's that go ruck thing? They're carrying around weights. Go walk around with your kid. You've got the ultimate go ruck. Figure it out. It's not that hard. So, yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate routine is something that puts you in the most clarity state of being, and is something that you can replicate, and it's not too complicated.
Yeah, I feel like so many influencers these days make it seem like you got to do 1,500 things every day,
man,
to be healthy, right?
Wow,
like they made like so many, like so granular. All this like nitty gritty, all this like unnecessary detail.
There is so much unnecessary detail and influence. Can we just do like a whole podcast on our pet peeves of influencer people? Let me just start off with one too.
Make some enemies out of it though.
Oh man, I won't call out any names in it, but it's like even so much thing with like health and like, okay, getting in great shape. Like it's really actually simple, but everybody's putting all these different things out there. And I think there's so much information that people become so confused on which way to go that they don't even know how to take that first step. It's like an overload and overwhelm. And it's one of the archetypes, which is the distracted. Like you can listen to all the podcasts, you can read all the books, and a lot of people do, man. And they go to all the conferences, and then I see them in the same place. Like, well, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you they just consume it. There's a huge difference between knowing and doing. And I think that's one of the main things that I'm trying to break in this. Like, don't get so, just
don't major in the minors.
Oh, that was the best way to say it. That is what I was going for. Yes, exactly.
What would you say the majors are?
I would say the majors are your essentials. I would say the majors are coming back to the whole, like where your purpose is. Your majors are going to be, Max, your vision. So we talked about your vision earlier. My vision is similar in the sense of having more impact through speaking, through more books, through ultimately doing a show myself. And if I'm not pouring in my daily, like what I'm doing on a daily that will lead to that, then I'm majoring in the minors. And it becomes difficult the more people that you have asking you to do things, the more opportunities. Like I can only imagine how many people come reach out to you like, Max, dude, I got this great business idea. We're going to make millions. But then it's like another thing on your plate. And if it keeps you ultimately away from what you want to do and what you know you're made to do in your sweet spot, then it becomes a minor. Then it becomes a distraction.
100%. Yeah, I've always said that if my primary goal was to make money, I'd probably have a hell of a lot more of it.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's like
Totally.
literally like quality content,
Yes.
doing the best I can, learning as much as I possibly can, and then like not being so work focused.
Absolutely.
Like having enough time in my day where I can do the things that I love.
Yep.
The gym. Now, granted, I'm pretty privileged in that I live in Los Angeles, so I have access to great things. I don't have a child, so I don't, I don't have like a family.
Yeah.
I am very much like a solo agent.
Yeah.
Out in the world. But
hold on, you don't have to apologize for that. That's something too. Like you've created this life, so you don't have to apologize for. Well, I live in Los Angeles. I don't like. Everybody makes choices. Some people just make better choices than others.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Think about that, people.
No, I love it. I definitely value my autonomy.
Yes.
I value my self-care. I value living in a major metropolitan, cosmopolitan area. Like the fact that I live in LA, I love living in LA.
Me too.
There were times over the past couple of years, pandemic in particular, where I thought about moving to Texas, like so many of my colleagues, our colleagues in the podcasting world have done. But I actually like really enjoy LA for the most part.
Thank you for staying.
Yeah, and yeah, so I do definitely like. Yeah, you're right. I have kind of like carved a life out for myself.
But that is ultimately what everybody is trying to do, and what this book is really centered around is, and this is not a play for the book, but it is a play for your life of, you want to live your life with the ultimate rhythm. And Max just went through what his rhythm is. He's like, hey, I want autonomy. I love to create margins in my day. So if I want to go to the gym, I can go to the gym. And he's created that. I want to live in Los Angeles. I want to live in great weather. I want to be able to travel when I can. I want, you create the life you live by the choices that you make today. But so many people can't see their vision down the road that they get so caught up in a little hamster wheel, and they keep going and going and going and going. And then it's so easy to blame, and it's so easy to complain, and it's so easy to say, well, Max, oh, you so privileged of this. No, you've made those choices to get there. I don't think anybody is beholden. This is the inopportune. The last archetype in the book is, the underestimator. The underestimator thinks that, well, I'm from small town this, or my parents raised me this way, so I can't do it. No, those are such excuses. I'm from a little small town in the middle of nowhere of Iowa. And no one gets out of that town. If I was to say, oh, well, it's just, people would have been like, oh, yeah, David, you're right. Yeah, stay here, be a farmer. You know what I mean? But so many people do that.
Yeah.
And I love that you're able to create the life that you want to live, because that is what we are doing for ourselves. And then what you are doing, what I'm doing, is that we pour back into other people to show them, hey, there's actually a better way. We can show you how to do it.
So how'd you go from small town David Nurse, rural town in Iowa, rural?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
To like coaching like big time NBA players living out in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Well,
what was that journey like?
This is where we get into the 3-hour stuff. All right, here we go. 2 hours. Man, all I wanted to do was play in the NBA. That was my whole, everything was poured into it. And I have a vertical leap of about 2 inches. I'm not that tall for the NBA, but I poured every waking hour into that. To play in the NBA, had no backup planned. Got to play college basketball at a school, Western Illinois, and go on to play professionally overseas. I was just grinding, doing 2-a-days, everything to film study to get that extra added advantage. And we'll fast forward, I'm over in second division Spain, in the Basque region of Spain, where they don't even speak Spanish, in this professional league. And it sounds cool to say play in pro basketball, but it was more like the Will Ferrell semi-pro than it was actually pro basketball. But still, I have no backup plan. Went through college, didn't have a backup plan. And that's like I was referring to earlier, I get cut from this team. So I get cut from this team, and I have to go back to my parents' house and, licking my wounds, living on their recliner chair for 6 months. And I put life into different snapshot moments, those moments in your life that you can recall that, like, okay, this changed my life. This moment, this conversation with this person, this person spoke a life of encouragement into me. My mom said this thing when she was doing dishes. She said, David, when one door closes, 4 open in an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And it caught me off guard because I've always heard one door, one door. And what she was saying is, just like we talked about with the long hallway, when a door closes, it's actually an opportunity for so much more to open up, only if you go and try to open those doors. No one's going to open doors for you. No one's going to make the call for you and say, hey, here's your dream job. We know you've been thinking of it. That ain't going to happen. So I also realized, all right, now my gifts weren't to play in the NBA. It was to coach players who had more God-given ability, 7-foot height, and athleticism. So I hand wrote a letter to every NBA GM because I decided I was going to coach in the NBA. I had no connections in the NBA at the time. Now my uncle is a coach for the Toronto Raptors, but he wasn't in the NBA at that time, so I didn't have the connections from that. Hand wrote a letter. One guy got back to me, the GM of the Los Angeles Clippers. He called me a month and a half later. After I thought nothing would come from these letters. Normal conversation. At the end of it, he says, if you're ever out in LA, look me up. We'll grab coffee. Basically, good luck with the rest of your life, kid. I took it as an opportunity. He was opening a door. So I spent all my money, stole some of my parents' money, booked a ticket to be out in LA that following week to act like I was going to do a basketball camp. So I didn't look desperate. Now I poured into that. I studied up for that. We had a great meeting. Every connection that I got in the NBA, ultimately leading me 5 years down the road to get a development assistant coaching job with the Brooklyn Nets, was through this guy, Gary Sachs. He becomes one of my great friends. He's in my wedding. I live with him when I move out to LA later in life because I took the chance to write that letter. And that's ultimately like taking action. There is no loss in it. It's a win-win situation. If nobody had gotten back to me, what was going to happen? I'd be at the same spot, right? And often people hold themselves back because they fear the result of what's going to happen. But when you think about it, well, you're not going to die. And even if you do die, then it's over. You don't even have to worry about it. See ya. And you're probably not going to go to jail. So what's the worst that can happen when you take those type of risks? So I also knew that, man, okay, well, now I have to make myself the expert. And people aren't just going to say, well, since David wants in the NBA, he says he's going to work hard, let's give him a job. Doesn't work that way. You make them want you. You don't make yourself desperate for them. All I could do was shoot. I developed these basketball shooting camps with this basketball made from China with horrible leather. Don't do business with China. White line down the middle. You see the rotation on it. They send these balls to Oakland Seaport. I drive 29 hours from Kansas City to Oakland in my little Nissan Maxima. I'm putting these balls in my car with these long haul truckers laughing at me as I fill up my little Nissan Maxima. I spend the next 5 years driving around the country, sleeping on friends' couches who didn't even know I was their friend, sleeping well at Walmart parking lots, just doing basketball camps for anybody that would take me in. So also when you have a dream, you are willing to put in those hours. You're willing to put in that, if you want to say grind, but it wasn't really a grind because I enjoyed it, to get to where you want. It's also I think it's one of the biggest separators for people too, to understand it will take time. And that's a great thing because if it happens fast, you haven't built up the roots, the foundation to be able to withstand it. And most people, they're going to give up. They're going to put in a year, 2 years, like, this ain't working, I'm out. I just kept going and kept going and kept going. 5 years later, wake up in Melbourne, Australia. I have an email that says Brooklyn Nets shooting coach. I thought it was spam. Didn't know anybody from the Nets. Wow. I open it the next week. I'm out in Brooklyn as a coach. And Gary Sachs was the one that made that connection.
Damn.
So that's how we got out of little cornfield, Iowa.
Damn, what a story. I think it's sometimes tempting to, you look at other people who seem to have garnered overnight success and you know, and it's like, it can be like daunting, you know, but what you don't see typically is like or what you don't hear about is like the backstory and the struggles and the trials and the tribulation and the failure.
Yeah.
And the like the misdirection and the pivoting, the rerouting.
Man, and this is something that's really freeing too, is you should look up, like type in any successful person and just see how long it took them to get there. It took them a long time. Like you can look up Colonel Sanders KFC, 1,009 times his recipe got rejected. Walt Disney was fired from the Kansas City Star because he was told he wasn't creative enough. Walt Disney. All these people go through rejections. And I think like this day and age that we live in, there's ways to make sure you will always be successful. And I think we're hitting on a lot of this, like how to figure out where your sweet spot is, how to figure out what that calling is for you. And then also how to figure out, well, if you get rejected, if you fail, use those skills, you're moving on to the next. And realizing that it will take time. And if you're okay with it taking time, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Like when you say, hey, man, this is like, I want to be a movie producer. I know 100% without doubt, if you want to do it, I know you will do it. I don't know if it's going to happen 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but if you really want to do it in your heart, I know you'll do it because you understand all of this we're talking about.
Was there ever a time in your life where you had to pick, like, I'm going to go down the sports route? Because, you know, like you're a multifaceted person. Like, you're not only interested in basketball, right? Like, I'm obsessively interested in health and nutrition, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not all that I'm interested in.
Right.
I'm interested in movies. I'm interested in music. But I remember there was a point in my life where I had to basically like take stock and do like an inventory of all the things that I was interested in. And you know, sometimes people will say like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But actually, sometimes you have to put all your eggs in one basket, right? Sometimes that's actually the best thing that you could do.
Max, yes, yes, yes. And that's another thing to know. If you say, well, everybody says or they say this, that's generally wrong. So people say, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, you probably do. It's even like in the investing world, like, oh, diversify. Well, why don't I do what I know really well? Like, why don't I know? I understand commercial real estate with some friends. Like, why wouldn't I go into that? Because I understand that. I don't understand the stock market. Why do I have to diversify? But yeah, so you do put them all in, because then if you want to be the best or the best that you can be at something, but yet you don't have the time to commit towards it, you're not going to be very good at it.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole thing of like when you write a book, you have to, and I know I have to do this for the next one that I've already got concepts of what I want to do. I'm going to have to clear out a lot of stuff because right now in what I'm doing, I would never be able to write a good book. I have zero time to do it. So yes, you put all your eggs in one basket. And even for me, like with speaking now more than coaching basketball players on court, I don't coach basketball players on court anymore because I would have zero time to do what I'm actually passionate about in helping people unlock roadblocks in their life, whether they're a basketball player, a CEO, or anybody in life. That's where my passion is. It's not X's and O's and teaching jump shot. That was the vehicle to lead me to where I am today. Where I am 10 years from now, I don't know. It's that long hallway we're still going down.
But you went all in.
I went all in. I totally went all in. Yep. And I think you got to go all in. If you, man, it's like if you can have different things you're doing in, like, you have a podcast, you have a book, like you can have these different things, but they're all centered on one mission. It's not saying you're doing so many different things, but I'm not going to be cutting hair, doing basketball lessons, doing all these and trying to do little side hustle. I've got one main mission. Everything feeds into that. And yeah, I'm going all in because I believe in myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you got to think of yourself like a brand no different than like Pepsi. You know, Pepsi might have all these other flavors in their repertoire,
Great analogy.
in their catalog, right? But at the end of the day, they're all obesity and diabetes promoting soft drinks, right? And so
they know their mission.
Yeah, they're all like aligned in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great analogy. I don't know if we want to be obesity promoters in what we do, but yes, totally.
No, the opposite.
Exactly.
We're here to get swole.
Yeah. Can we talk about your game plan you have? I mean, I'm seeing this like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm doing
man.
And the text messaging. Maybe I need to get into your text messaging.
Yeah, no. I by the way, this was delicious.
Oh yeah, we did drink Element chocolate.
I just we got to give a shout out because this was actually, you might have changed my life. So
I told you it would.
We combined a packet of Element chocolate caramel, which Element's a sponsor of the show, full disclosure, but I love Element. I drink it every day.
I do too.
So it's like chocolate caramel, one packet of that with 2 additional packets of, we used like a stevia erythritol blend. So we put some additional sweetener in it, sugar-free sweetener. And then I put a scoop of collagen.
It's so good.
Bubs collagen into and it's bomb, dude.
I know.
Hot water.
Hot water. Yeah, that's the key.
Hot water. So about 12 ounces to 16 ounces of hot water.
I told you it was going to change your life. Like I don't often spend time with people when I don't change their life.
No, you're right, dude.
Just kidding.
This was amazing, man. I'm going to be drinking this now for like every podcast episode. I feel fired up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, I don't want to like go too far off course. But yeah, I just decided over the past couple months, I decided to do like for fun. It wasn't a health goal. I was already healthy. So just to be clear that like you don't have to be shredded to be healthy. That's not
But it was a competition with yourself. You wanted to see if you could do it.
I just wanted to see if I could do it. Well, because I had the nutritional. Well, actually, to be honest, I learned a lot. So I thought, I knew a lot prior to this journey about fat loss and body composition. And what I realized, and this is what I've always said, and this is still completely true, you can you can have a healthy body composition just focusing purely on food quality, right? And doing all the things that we know equate to a healthy dietary pattern. But nobody just like guesses their way into a 10% body fat, right? You have to have like a strategy.
Right. Yes.
And so what I did was I adopted a few basic principles and just to see if I could do it, which of course I could do it, but I wanted to like learn on the like boots on the ground so that I could speak to it. And yeah, so I went from about like 15 to 16% body fat to like 10, like Sweet. 10% body fat. Yeah. And I haven't been this lean in a while. And I think I probably am going to stop. I'd like to see the in-body like electrical impedance, like body fat measurement thing that I use at my gym, get down to like maybe like the high 9s, like single digits. And then I'm going to stop. I'm just going to like go back to like, whatever.
Totally cool. Before. Yeah. But the reason even that I asked you, because I knew your answer was going to be, I had a plan. I had the basics and I stuck to it. Yeah. That is life.
Yeah.
You have a plan, you have guidelines for where you want to go, and you stick to the consistency of the daily habits that you're putting in, and you will ultimately get there. Max, did it happen overnight?
No.
After 1 week, were you down from 17 to 10?
No.
Oh, wild. I can't believe it.
No, it takes patience and consistency and like saying no to things. I mean, I had to, at first I was eating home a lot, which is actually kind of what was the light bulb moment for me. Yeah. To initiate the process, because it was like, I'm not even like going out so much. I'm eating home. So if I'm eating home, like it's a lot easier to control the controllables.
Yep. Way
more difficult when you're out in the restaurant setting. But, over the past 3 or so months, I've, occasionally like I've turned down going to restaurants where I know like I have a goal and I'm going to like make certain sacrifices, temporary sacrifices towards this goal. And it's been fun. Like it's been relatively easy. It's been pretty easy. I'm not lying.
I know.
Yeah,
it is easy.
It's easy and it's been fun. And I feel very proud of myself that I did it. And then, I could always say that I got to 10 or whatever, 9.5% body fat.
And you now know that you can do it at any time when you want to. It gives you that control over it.
There you go. It's totally a skill that I now have like in my back pocket.
Yeah. Anytime you want to bust it out, like, hey,
every summer,
GQ's calling, I'm on.
do a little micro cut. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's a lot of content on YouTube now. There's like a lot of like really great like fitness professionals, evidence-based fitness types on YouTube who, there's tons of videos on like how bodybuilders get prepped for shows, right? And so there's there is a method. It's like not rocket science.
But what's cool is that it comes back to like you're a constant learner. You're wanting this knowledge. You're seeking this knowledge out. And then you're not just knowing the knowledge, you're actually doing the knowledge. And here's another one that we can just come back to another archetype. I think we've almost touched on all of them. Maybe there's a couple out there.
Just skimming the surface though. People should go and check out your book. Do it and like pick it up and support, because I mean, I know you put like a lot of soul into this book.
There's a lot of soul in it. There's 3 years of research. Dude, research. Like I have so much respect for you in doing research on your books. It's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
To find the actual studies that like sometimes you just get like, why can't I just throw this study in? Doesn't this work there? No, it doesn't. You actually have to do real research and you have to check the research and you have to do all this kind of stuff. But it's fun. It's a fun journey to get there. I don't even know I was going with that next. Oh, is the inopportune? Okay, so here's a cool one. So people listening can probably think, well, I'm too old to get in great shape. I'm too old, or I'm too young to be able to do something. No, you're not. There is never an age that you can stop learning and stop growing. Your brain stops maturing around your late 20s on average, but the difference between maturing and learning is incredibly vast. And most people think, well, I can't learn anymore. I can't learn a new language. There's a lady, Nola Oakes, 85 years old. She started college down in Florida, got a graduate degree at 80, whatever, it's like 85, 86, 87, whatever she ended up graduating at. But that's the decision that we make. We know so many people in our space are like, oh, they started a podcast at 55. Like you're never too old, but you're never too young. So when I put that all together of like people hold themselves back because they think they have to, it all has to be at the right time. There is never a right time. The right time was probably yesterday. So the second best time is today.
Yes, you just got to get out there and do it. Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.
I think it all starts with mindset, man. You know, and I love to talk about this concept I write about in my new book called the possible mindset. I define that as an empowered way of thinking that unlocks a life of limitless possibilities. And I believe that we all have the capacity inside of us to kind of unlock that and conjure that up.